Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Petra Bárdyho. I'm editor-in-chief of Slovak media outlet Aktuality.sk. Let me welcome you here in this discussion. First, I would like to introduce you. Slovak side, my very good friend, editor-in-chief of Slovak media outlet SME, Slovak Daily SME, Beata Balogová. From Prague, editor-in-chief of Investigace.cz, Pavla Holcová. From Hungary, Marton Gergely, leader editor of HVG. And from Poland, Michal Szundzinski, first deputy editor of Rzeczpospolita. So next few minutes, we will talk about situation in our countries during the pandemic of coronavirus. We will talk about situation in media business, in journalism, in V4 countries. So first, how has the pandemic changed the operation of journalists? Beata?
It has made more challenging and even more urgent to control people in power. And the situation has changed in a way that even the population feels endangered. So any criticism of the government received by the powerful is received more sensitively. And the response sometimes is that, are you criticizing us, and by this you are weakening our ability to fight the virus. And so the pressure on media is even bigger because we have to very clearly explain why we are criticizing the government. And sometimes we really have to question some of the steps, even those which are packed in this very populistic sort of rhetoric. I would mention an example. For example, like we did have this full-scale national testing, the whole nation testing. And our prime minister said that this is going to save us, and this will ensure that we will have a peaceful Christmas holiday, and we will be able to ease the lockdown. We already knew that this is not entirely how it is. And it was a challenge to how to balance, giving space and giving media representation to critics who really questioned if it is a good idea. And these people were really, they faced also harsh criticism of Matovic, and we really had to balance. And as you remember, in a very last minute before the testing, we have to decide what to do. Should we encourage the people to go to testing, or should we continue, asking the government, is it a good idea? How you secure, that people are not getting infected while waiting for the testing? And it really showed the immense pressure which adds up to your normal daily operation. Not to talk about like things, how you talk to sources. Your sources are now preferring sending email answers to your questions. Even when we meet, then we are talking through Zoom or through the phone. And we did have experience several times that the phone call was interrupted whenever we ask like a sensitive question. So this all adds up to more pressure, and even the home office brings challenges, because when you are sitting together in a room, you can be the opponent to your reporter. And so when you talk about the stories, it's much easier, to question some of the findings and to lead the reporter, and somehow also inspire more humbleness or more respect to facts. But when they are distant, so sometimes you get the story in a very last moment and you just have to edit it very quickly. So the reduction of this human interaction also impacts like how you work with the story. So I think that these would be my main points about how the pandemics impact our operation.
Paula, what about your experience in Czech Republic?
Somehow difficult to make any comments after Beata, because her comments are always good and always accurate. We have slightly different problems here. There was no general testing of people, so we took the other kind of attitude towards coronavirus, and that actually during those 9 months, not even a year, our Minister of Public Health changed 3 times, and the president just ceased to exist. So we are somehow thrown in a kind of a vacuum where we are not sure what's going to be next, what decision is going to be next. But otherwise, the solidarity among people, especially during the first wave of coronavirus, was huge. And that was very nice to notice, or to acknowledge that actually people really do care, and they really do care about the others.
Yes, I see the same. First part of this year was more or less about solidarity, about friendship, but the second is more or less, it's more stressful, and it's more about aggressivity, frustration. So I see it also in the journalism and in our work as well.
Yes, right. Yeah, and even we as an investigative journalist, we are trying to even bring the issues that are somehow positive, what is not usual in our work, because of the mounting frustration of people who are reading media and who are actually living the situation. For me, the challenging thing is that we are international network, and we meet in person at least a couple of times a year, but it didn't happen this year. What is kind of like we can't really share, we can't really gossip, what is kind of important for psychohygiene to stay normal. It didn't happen, and I can feel that actually it's taking its toll, and we are much more tired and much more frustrated by our job than we are otherwise during normal years.
Paula, I was actually wondering, if
yes.
I may, did you have to delay the work on any stories because of the pandemic?
We were not forced by some external circumstances to delay any stories, but some stories take much more time because we could not meet and coordinate. For example, we were about to publish the stories, the series on Group America, what was about mafia stories. We were about to publish it at the beginning of summer, but because we are not able to finish online the editing and kind of a talk over the stories, we only publish in September.
Martin, you can continue. For example, what about Hungary and your experience?
Well, a lot of things were already discussed. So Beata and Paula have described our feelings as well. I think what's special about Hungary is that we have a fully developed illiberal media landscape. So we have a huge powerhouse which is only following propaganda means, which is fully controlled. And the whole idea behind this propaganda is to control the messages the Hungarian government wishes to have in the Hungarian media. So always be ahead of the news, always give the topics. Now, this year, what was strange, that the virus is not working as the Hungarian government wants it to. So the virus is immune to propaganda. It's not like the migration crisis, which we all remember, which was a fantastic topic for Orbán, because he has managed to tell the story for 5 years again and again and again, although facts didn't really meet the stories, but it was not, it was not something you could really feel on your everyday life. So if Orbán said there are 60 million people in Libya who wants to come to Europe tomorrow, that was something the Hungarian public was debating about. So that the control of the topics were easy for 9 years. And now this year we had the virus, and the virus had its own logic, and it had its own stories. So first in spring, as it all broke, so we were there, and we didn't know what's happening and what's gonna happen, and we were all stunned. It was a very optimistic feeling for us journalists at independent news outlets, because people came to us to see what's happening. So people have learned in the last 10 years that the Hungarian propaganda papers and the news are only telling the story Orban wants to have. And now suddenly everybody wanted to know about the virus. They wanted to know if they can trust the Hungarian numbers. They wanted to know if they can trust the Hungarian healthcare system. They wanted to know what's ahead and how other countries are dealing with it. So they came to us to read us. The next strange thing was that although first we didn't believe that we have so small numbers, that we are actually, the lucky ones in the first wave, we were the lucky ones. So it came out that the Hungarian government didn't have to lie about the statistics because the numbers were all right. So now here we are in the autumn, and Peter, you said it right. There's a frustration, not only within the journalists, but also in the whole society. Everybody is, tired of all the measures and tired not to be able to move around, to give the kids to the grandparents and things like that. And my optimism is now blown away, because I had the feeling in the last few months, for the first time in 10 years, the propaganda media is telling the better story. It's telling the story that everything is going to be fine, that actually the Hungarian national healthcare system is working, that the numbers are moderate right now, that everything is cool and everything is fine, although it is not. So right now it is horrible what we are having. We had 189 dead today, which is the highest number of dead in the whole during the whole pandemic, and there's no turning point in sight. It is absolutely obvious that the partial lockdown is not working, that the Hungarian virus situation is out of control, and we don't see the number of people coming to us and read about the news because they are tired of it. So this is the first time that I'm afraid propaganda might be giving the better story, the better story people want to listen, and this would be a horrible outcome.
Martin, I was wondering, how difficult it must be for you to get the information, for example, about the cases, because even here in Slovakia, it's a challenge to check and control, the official statistics. How are you dealing with it? Because
Beata, it's worse here, because what we had, all the experts are only allowed to talk if they get permission. So university scholars and heads of hospitals and other experts are all somehow connected to the Ministry of Human Resources, as it's called here. And the ministry has to give its yes to any time they talk to us. Now, for some time, we were able to talk to them under the condition of anonymity, and they still they were still able to give us important insight. But about a month ago, as the numbers were high rocketing and everything got out of control, we had the message that the experts can't even talk to us off the record because they don't get the data. So actually what happened a month ago, as everything was screwed, sorry for the language, that the Hungarian government decided to keep even from the experts, all data secret. So they can't give any assessments because they don't know the real numbers. So here we are. We are in the dark, and this is partly also a reason why our stories are not that nice, because we are always in the position of the ones who are trying to get the data, who are always doubting the official point of view, and it paints us in a bad light, and we can't do anything against it, because we are just simply not getting the data we want to report and share. This is immensely frustrating.
One more point from Hungary. I remember it was a few weeks ago. We were close at home in Slovakia. We could go to work to buy some goods, but generally we were at home. And I saw on internet some pictures from the football match between Ferencváros and Újpest, and there were 15,000 people on the stadium. Why?
Do
they think they are immortal, or is it result of propaganda, or why?
Yeah, Juventus played before 30,000 people in Budapest a month ago. They were shocked as they were here. They didn't know that it was still possible. It is insane what's going on. I think that it's more about politics. We could talk about it. Mr. Orbán didn't want to go into the lockdown in spring, and he was forced by all the news coming from northern Italy, and because of the fear of an unknown virus, and after the spring outbreak was so mild in Hungary, Orbán realized that he was right. He could have say no to a lockdown, and now financially and economically Hungary would be in a much better position. So he went into the second wave with a very strong feeling that he is not going to allow a second lockdown, and this is, I think, partly why we have so horrible numbers now, that he was just, sticking to the plan too long.
Mm-hmm. I would like to continue to Poland. Michal, what has changed in your country in last few months? What about journalism in Poland?
I would say that everything's changed, but I'd like to start with something optimistic, because something which is really a source of hope for us as journalists is that we observe here in Poland that demand for information is much bigger, and we can see the traffic on our website. We can see that even in the first lockdown, when the points when the press is sold were closed, people were still trying to find their printed copies, and they were buying new subscriptions, and it was something which was really hopeful for us. We had the very difficult year as regards politics, because we had presidential election here in Poland, which was scheduled to May, and it was impossible to hold them on May, and it was finally made. First turn was in June and second in July, which caused huge political problems, because it was the first time the election was held during the pandemic. We as a newspaper sometimes has a very bad role. Martin said that our readers do not want always to hear bad information about the situation. It is our role as journalists to question numbers, to question methods, to question what is the basis on the decisions are made. But on the other hand, we have quite strong let's say, corona skeptical movement in Poland. There are many people saying there's no coronavirus, or it is like a flu. So what's all this for? We have quite strong anti-vaccine movement, and it was really hard work. How to criticize the government, how to ask the questions, not to inflame this distrust to the government, because people, even if we criticize government, people paradoxically have to trust that government is doing things in their own interests, in the people's interests. So if the government says, okay, we are doing the lockdown, we are criticizing the government, but we have to say to the people, okay, but stay at home, yes, and wear a mask, wash your hands. So it's sort of ambiguity we have to deal with every time. Yes, what is this level of criticism which is inevitable for journalists, and what is the level in which you are helping those who are saying, okay, all the numbers are fake, everything is fake, we do not need any lockdowns. As regards politics, we had really, I would say, very good reaction of the authorities to the coronavirus in spring, and very bad now in autumn. The Polish government had this privilege that coronavirus in Poland started 3 or 4 weeks later than in Western Europe. So even it was many cases in Czechia, in Germany, in many places, there were only 1 or 2 cases in Poland. The first case in Poland was 8th of March, and it started to rise very, very slowly. And the government's reaction was really hard, because the government asked the telecoms how many people spend their winter holidays in Alps, and the telecom said something about 150,000. So the government said, oh my God, it will mean that all these people come back to Poland and we'll have a huge epidemic. So they started lockdown, and the lockdown worked, because the rate of new infections were really, really, really low. And then the government believed that their fate is that they always deal it with, and they succeeded. And it made them less cautious and less predicting in autumn, and the government waited to the very last moment to introduce some restrictions. For example, to close the schools, which were open, and after the schools were open, the numbers rose rapidly. So it was like that, and we had this problem as journalists, because we almost stopped to meet in person in our office. Okay, we use Zoom, we use many communicators to talk, but the problem is that I think that journalism is about talking. It's about talking to people. It's about talking between journalists. There are many topics which are born in discussions, in a queue to the coffee machine, in a queue to the lift, in the queue to the lunch, and there are no common lunches, there are no queues to lifts, and everybody is really afraid of standing in line in a line with anybody else. So if you see that somebody's making coffee, you wait and go there alone, and it makes this job much more difficult. And there's a problem that you mentioned before, the problem of sources. Many people do not want to talk with you by phone. And since personal meetings, even those with conditions of anonymity, are not possible to make, it's really harder to find sources and to confirm information, to gather gather information. But we are doing our best.
Yes, we began talking about disinformation or misinformation scene, about the conspiracy media, and I think that during the first wave of pandemic in spring, the conspiracy media didn't ready to spread a lot of content, but now we are really facing something like a tsunami of hoaxes and fake news. For example, Beata, can you say something about situation in Slovakia? Because I think it will be more or less the same or very similar in other countries.
Yeah, and as already some of my colleagues mentioned, it increases the challenge because we are in a very schizophrenic situation, and as my friend and esteemed journalist Marton already explained me in the past, that how Viktor Orbán always sets the agenda. And I see many similarities with Matovic, that they want to be the sun in the universe, and they always want to set the agenda. And so one of our roles is to look at their agenda, what they want to hide. And then we have the whole scene of conspiracy news. It's also something to focus on. Then you have the normal agenda. For example, in Slovakia, we have faced a wave of arrests. I mean, the whole police is now, like, police officials are now sitting in retention or pre-trial custody. And so it's very difficult. And I always try to find a balance so that we are not only reacting. So we are also setting, like, this is the issue we have to talk about. And now with the tsunami of fake news, if we would want to boost every bullshit and every fake news, we wouldn't do anything else, just doing it. So it is really challenging, like, how much time you devote to that. And also because of the economic hardship, I don't have like 3 people just to tell them, like, you are now reading the web and you will be like explaining why this is not the correct information. So it's really a huge challenge, and I think that also we need to put more pressure on the government that they do part of the job, because I don't think that this should be only the media's role, you know, to boost these to bust these myths, but it should be also the role of government agencies to actually try to make more accessible, like, the information. And also government officials shouldn't spread some of these fake news, but they really should be like trying to enforce the correct information. But what we always face is that if you have a populist in government, so the language they are using and you know, the randomness of when he decides that, you know, this scientific information is true and we are going to trust it, and when it is not, it's really sometimes confuses the public. And if the governmental official communication is confusing, then people will be sort of, you know, not trusting, and they will think that the government is hiding something. And this is why I think that in Slovakia, this governmental infighting and fight between coalition parties really harmed this trust, and it contributed to this like huge increase in fake news and all type of information spreading.
Yes, I remember it was head of Slovak fascist party, Mr. Kotleba, and he said that there is in Bible some text from Saint John, and it's about that that Saint John is against vaccination. So it was really crazy. But I remember thousands and thousands of people shared this this story via Facebook, and I felt very bad feeling in this time. Pavla, one question for you. Maybe I don't want to be naive, But when I'm comparing situation in Slovakia with Hungary and Poland, I see a lot of very similar points in the question of position of fake news media in our countries. But Czech Republic in this topic looks like an island of freedom, island of great people who understand what does it mean trustworthy, who really want to check the information and to choose the media who are trustworthy and very serious. So is it
sure? Definitely. No. The situation here is slightly different. I don't know why. I don't have any good explanation why people here are somehow more resistant to fake news or hoaxes. But what is probably important to mention here, that the Czech media landscape is really controlled by only 4 people. And the biggest control is held by Andrej Babiš, the prime minister. And he has reached up to 80% of the population weekly. So the public discourse is pretty much controlled. It also means that the public money going into the media are going into the media that belong to Andrej Babiš. And maybe this could be the reason why there's not much space left for any other media, including the fake news media, even if they have they have different kind of funding than any other independent or let's say mainstream media.
And what about public broadcasting? For example, Slovak National TV and Slovak National Radio, they are in hands of our government, and it's a question last 30 years. It isn't something new. But in Czech Republic, I see you are in a better condition.
Well, definitely, as the prime minister is originally from Slovakia, he really loves the idea of.
I'm sorry.
He loves the idea of getting hold on public broadcasters, and the changes that are right now happening at the Czech TV, it's really devastating, and we can only really pray that it wouldn't end up that the Czech public broadcasters are going to be another media tool for the government. But we should really watch it closely and see what's going on and control the processes that already started and are already really bad.
Mm-hmm. Martin, you said that the main media in your country are illiberal media. And I remember that this word illiberal, it was one of the key words of your prime minister, Mr. Orbán. But later he started to talk about Catholic or conservative Christian Europe, Christian parties, Christian politics. Was it a good decision of Mr. Orbán to change this word? What does it mean, illiberal media? I'm asking for our people from the Europe who are watching this discussion, because we know what does it mean, but maybe
how to describe the illiberal media he has built. Well, you see, this is a communication channel of the Hungarian government, let's say. So it's not working as a media outlet, so not questioning what's happening and not trying to follow news of the day and try to write what's behind a news and how to understand it. So not the normal journalistic work, but to constantly write the take of the Hungarian government on current affairs. So how they see the world, how they react to the world, and what they want to be read and what they want to be heard. So this is actually on every channel. We have in the last 10 years a lot of examples for the message control they are doing. So, for example, we know that the public broadcast media is not allowed to give any news about Greta Thunberg because Greta Thunberg is an environmentalist and an important figure who is backing ideas which are not in favor of the Hungarian government. So there's no news about her, only if it's a negative news. Even neutral news you can't publish about Greta Thunberg. Or we know that Amnesty International is not to be quoted in the public broadcast, and all those things. So there's a very strict censorship under which the government media is working. And right now that there's a huge scandal coming from Brussels, the former head of the Hungarian delegation, József Szájer, was caught at an orgy in Brussels, which was against corona restrictions of Belgium. So the police has intervened, and the Hungarian government newspapers don't tell their readers what was the story. So if you only read Hungarian government papers, you read the story that there was some party in Brussels, and after this party, Szájer was forced to step down from his position. And as Mr. Orbán said 2 days ago, that what Szájer did was not it was unforgivable for the political family Fidesz is in. Actually, if you were a reader or visitor of any government news outlets, you wouldn't know what Orbán was talking about. Going to a party is not within the scope of the Hungarian ruling party. Why is it? Because actually the readers of the propaganda press don't know about the true dimensions of that story. So this is how insane the whole thing works. They are keeping important information away from the people who are reading it.
I think for our colleagues in Slovakia to understand is that we are not fighting just a couple conspiracy sites, but fake news and conspiracy news is basically the official agenda of the government. And I always wonder, like, how is it to work in such environment? And maybe, Martin, if you could say a couple words, how difficult it is actually to set the agenda and change and make sure that the topics you consider important get to readers other than, let's say, in Budapest.
Well, it is a constant, process of thinking how to handle news, because you said fact-checking is important, busting fake news is important, but actually in Hungary, it's information war we are in. So I said that if you are at the point at which we are now, with this fully developed illiberal media landscape, you shouldn't focus that much on fact-checking the others. You shouldn't focus that much on busting fake news, because it makes you someone who is always only reacting to the others, and you are playing your role as a liberal who is denying the simple facts of simple people. And I think this is why after a point I would suggest to a healthy media environment, do the fact checking, bust fake news, because it's very important that you don't allow them to spread the way it did in Hungary. And if it spreads to a point of no return, let's say, I think you should stop the fact checking of others. And you should start to think about, okay, where are the original stories I want to write? What is what I want to tell people? How I want to deal with the coronavirus? And to somehow close you out of this asymmetric warfare you can't win. So let's not focus on the government, what they let us know and what they don't let us know. Let's try to have a clear head, and let's think about what we want to write about Corona. And the other thing is, if there's such an immense pressure to understand everything from a political view, so if everything is so polarized, what you need is that in your news, don't follow and don't react to fake news media and to the state propaganda that much. Try to be independent from them. And second, don't follow them in narrowing down opinion pieces. Let your media be the one which opens itself. So perhaps on a more healthy media environment, I would have had my doubts about printing Corona skeptical articles. But in Hungary, I thought we need an opinion so wide only possible because this is what is taken from us as well. So the public debate is taken from us, a fair debate about our stuff and neutral news. And this is what we should do. I don't say that we always succeed because the circumstances are horrible, but this is the approach I would love to do.
Michal, we are talking about very strange situation when traditional, professional, or trustworthy media are fighting with conspiracy media. What is the situation in your country? Because I have some information because our publisher has also some activities in Poland, but please tell me more.
Yes, our situation is even more complicated because we have, let's say, three sides of it. On one side, we have the pro-governmental media, which are very in line with the government, and they are sometimes using coronavirus in a political fight. I will give you an example. For example, we had 6 weeks ago, there was a very moving for a lot of people ruling of the Constitutional Tribunal about abortion. And the result of this ruling was thousands or hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. And for example, in the public TV, you could see that those who are protesting are using biological bomb because there will be a rise of infections because of that, because they are going together. Formally it's illegal in Poland to gather publicly in more than 5 people, and in March in Warsaw there were more than 100,000 people. The corona crisis was a tool to criticize those people who started to go to those protests. It's the first point, and the government says, okay, do not protest because it's dangerous for your health. Do not protest because this protest will harm your fathers, mothers, grandmothers, and grandfathers. So do this for the society, not to protest. On the other hand, we do not have, as regards corona crisis, let's say fake news media. It's all in the internet, and it's really shocking how strong this sites on social media the groups of people who are skeptical to coronavirus, how strong they are. And the main channel of them, of this fake news as regards coronavirus, it's YouTube films, it's YouTube groups, it's groups on Facebook, it's very popular accounts on Twitter, and these are not in the official media outlets. So the paradoxical situation is that those media who try to be, let's say, objective or not partisan, they have to counter this pro-governmental propaganda on one hand, and this fake news proliferation on other hand. And for example, our newspaper started the action Stop Fake News about coronavirus, and we made interviews with experts on media or on internet environment of the spread of information, how to deal with conspiracy theories, but of course we know that in these times, of course, there are some competition between the media outlets. In countries where there is competition, because let's say, how to say it diplomatically, not in all of the V4 countries there is a free competition of free media. But the problem is that our great competitor also is not only the government who is trying to control media, but it's also the internet, which is first of all the place in which the big platforms are on one hand the biggest competitor, and so let's say we have to fight on the two fronts.
Yes, it looks a little bit like discussion of 5 sad people who are talking only about problems, but I see also a big opportunity when pro-government media and conspiracy media are spreading a lot of hoaxes and fake news. I think it's time for democratic media, pro-democratic media, for independent media to find some better or better position on the market. So what about that? Is it time for new revolution of trustworthy and professional journalism? Michal, you can start, for example.
No, it is really important question, because in all our countries the situation is completely different. Because, for example, in 90s there were not many foreign capital in Polish media. And for example, when Axel Springer went to Poland and started to make its new media, everybody said, "Oh, it's great because the pluralism will be bigger." But paradoxical now situation in Poland is that I would say that now we have really pluralistic view of media, because we have right-wing media, we have central media, we have liberal media, but the problem is that it's not like that they all have equal chances, because, for example, conservative media are strictly connected with the government, and these liberal media are anti-governmental and they are private. So it's not a pluralistic situation in which you have the liberal private media and conservative state-owned media. The competition doesn't work like that you have publishing houses which have quite big support from the state-owned firms, for example, and on the other hand you have the normal enterprises which have their own media, and they have to fight with they have to struggle in normal economy. In Poland, for example, we have very strong public sector. So well, I think that the biggest advertiser in Poland are the state-owned firms, and it's a great tool in hands of politicians to target the stream of money to the media. They do not they don't criticize them. So situation is really complicated. And as regarded this protest, we had very dangerous situation in which police started to beat journalists. It happened on national event of the March of Independence on 11th of November, and police was really brutal against journalists. A few days ago, the police said sorry for that, but during the protests concerning this abortion law, for example, one photo reporter was detained by police, and police said, "Okay, it is not. This person was not a press during this protest, but it was the protester." The situation is really dangerous when the police chooses who is the protester and who is the press, which covers the protest. The funny story, not for this person who was detained and, for example, let free after a few hours of interrogation, the police said that this lady, it was lady, attacked the police with the flashlight of a camera.
Great. Beata, what about your point of view? Do you think, is it the time to make journalism great again?
It is always a time to...
Because, you know, our Prime Minister, Mr. Matovic, a few weeks after the election, he said that he can found a new fund, and he can I think it was 10 million euros for independent journalism, for investigative journalism, and we said no.
We said no, and I have to say that I'm sure that this inspiration comes from Viktor Orbán. And before I answer your question, I would like to make a point, and not only because of our friend Marton, but because I think that the situation of Hungary and the press in Hungary is so urgent that it concerns everyone. And of course we get the news, and unless it is József Szájer who comes half naked from a sex orgy, like, people here don't read that much about that situation. And I think that in many ways, Orbán has inspired politicians across the region. He inspired Robert Fico, who, if you remember, several times started using the Soros argument, which is the most awful kind of fake propaganda article to use. And also, I think that it weakens the position of the EU in the whole Visegrad, because common people, if they look at the situation, they feel that the European Union is weak to discipline one country where there is the most awful violation of elementary principles of the EU. And I would like to urge and send out a message to any EU player not to somehow make this situation bagatelle, not to think that they can fix it once again by allowing Orbán to go home and with a compromise that he can present at home as a victory. Mm-hmm. Because by not helping the Hungarian press to somehow get over that strong state control, we all suffer. Because Orbán is really spreading his influence not only by financing operations across the border, but also sending out a signal that you can get away with it. And I do think that, for example, here in Slovakia, we still have independent media. Media ownership is a big problem. I can say it from my own media house, where we still have a minority owner who is now actually the former boss of this group is in detention right now. And our owners are negotiating to somehow change this situation, but we still don't know the outcome. And for us, it's a credibility issue. And I am so proud that over the past 6 years, we were able to remain independent, but it was a hard work. And not because of the pressure that would have come from Penta, but because of the feeling that you still have to, you know that this owner is there. And the readers and some of, like Robert Fico, the opposition, now he's in opposition, like he always uses this argument. And I think that we do have to share successful models with our partners in different countries. If we try, because this is not a time where we have to be like so private and we have to keep, you know, only for ourselves any successful model, because we are really working on a common goal. I think that one example is the reader paid model, you know, the subscription model, which in Slovakia seems to be successful. You all already are trying that as well. And I think that for many countries, if we share these experience with them, they can also, you know, use some of our experience. Because I really think that none of the countries and can just be separately an island of independence, because anytime like a autocrat is getting successfully through with some violations, they will inspire someone. And even a person who is democratically elected, and we can see it on our prime minister, as you said.
Yes. Pavla, you have a special situation with your center. Your investigative center, as a member of international network of investigative centers, has very special situation. So you can say something about that and about your experience.
We are a very, very small media house comparing to you. We are actually a media apartment.
Sorry, you are a very small media with huge impact.
Yeah, and actually our financial model is pretty stupid as well, because we are heavily depending on the grants. So we need to have one full-time person only writing and submitting grant proposals to get money. And from a team of 9 people, it really, we heavily depend on our colleague who is actually in charge of the fundraising. And then we have other person, and she's in charge of reaching out to the individual donors, what means, you know, luring people to send us money so we can survive. And of course, the situation changed last year, because people are more afraid about their future. They are less willing to invest in something they can get for free. So yes, we didn't invent the way how to actually run in the small independent NGO and not being heavily depending on the grants. The problem is also that we are based in Czech Republic, what is seen as a kind of a, you know, all right country. So the investment into independent media is not so important for the big international donors as in other countries like Poland or Hungary. So we are struggling, we are fighting, and we want to explain that actually the fact that we are still not on a level of Hungary doesn't mean that we can't reach the level soon.
Okay, what is your politics of donors? Who can support your center? For example, because I can imagine that, for example, Mr. Babiš can use some of his companies to be donor of your center. Is it possible or not?
Of course not. Of course not. We don't take any money from the government, and we really focus more on traditional media donors like Soros, for example. You know, there is a Czech Czech donor who is focused on media, on independent media, and we also try to actually build the partnerships within OCCRP, what is the international network of investigative journalists, and try to fundraise all together.
Yes, when Pavla said the name Soros, Marton, you made something like this. What does it mean?
No, it's you know, Soros is in the center of every public debate if the Hungarian government is to decide. We don't really take part in it. We are sometimes appalled by what's happening. So I don't know if you have heard the incredible and unimaginable attack this past weekend as Hungarian government official was writing an awful piece about Soros. Well, I wanted to make the joke that we would take the 10 million euros from Matovic and it wouldn't be, you know, problematic in that way, and you know, just have a better or a more smooth start in the next year. But joke aside, you said you want to hear positive news. First of all, let's talk about the fact that Hungary is not Mr. Orbán, and there are a lot of people fed up. And there are people fed up who are pro-European, who know and who understood how important free press is, and who now see how important it was, as they were not really helping protect it. And that something is lost, and a lot of people realize we shouldn't allow that there are more losses. So what happened in the last few months was that out of thin air, a group of 50 people were able to start a new media enterprise. The new media outlet Telex has emerged from the news portal Index. We had in this summer a really nice, touching and moving situation where 90 of our fine colleagues showed immense bravery and lined up in one single queue, and they quitted their jobs because they said that it's not possible to write the news in the independent fashion they want to. And they quitted, and they didn't know whether they will find a new job. And they have built up a new office of 50 professional journalists. We are happy at HVG to have welcomed a few people from Index. So the others who are not on that one boat of Telex, they were having other possibilities to find a job and to write for the free Hungarian press in the future too. And we had our subscription model being introduced 15 months ago, and now we can say that we have increased our paying audience by 50%. So we were able to keep all of our subscribers in this hard time. People have said that they want the news we are writing and our analysis we are having in our weekly newspaper. And another 50% of them joined, younger, who have never had a print subscription, and now they are paying for an online content which they find important. And this is optimistic news. And this is not only optimistic because it means that we might survive. It's also optimistic because it shows that in Hungary after all the horrible propaganda, after all the hatred, after all the stupid anti-Soros slogans, there are still people who want to think, who want to read independent pieces, who want to make their own opinion about things, and who still care about facts. And that's a good feeling.
I used a lot of time after the assassination of my colleague Jan Kuciak to talk with European institutions to explain them what happened in Slovakia, what about media freedom in my country, what about corruption in this country. And I hoped that European institutions can help us, because I lost the rest of trust to our national authorities. Is it a way how to help journalism in the countries of Visegrad 4 to have a better future? Martin, you can start, for example.
I would pass to Michal.
I have something about these models, something optimistic.
Okay.
Before we start to talk about future, because I think that we had very few optimistic points in our media landscape last year. The group of Polish scientists and, let's say, tech funds, they organized the website, which is called patronite.pl, which raises money for many, not only media businesses, but for example, for artists, for many people who create some new things, and it works like that. That you go there and you open a fundraising for your project, whether you are young artists and you need money for some materials from which you create something. And for example, in this year, 2 new radio stations were created in Poland because thanks to the money that people give to the Patronite. The new radio Nowy Świat, New World, raised 2 million zlotys in 3 months, so it is €500,000. A few days ago, New Radio 357 was established because they said, okay, we are starting our live 24-hour program because we reached the level of 30,000 zloty, 300,000 zloty a week. So a month. So many people declared that they will pay 100 zloty, 50 zloty a month. So it's like 80,000 euro. On May, very famous, not famous because no foreign journalism or writing about foreign affairs, it's not something which is interesting for everybody, but there are people who are really interested in international affairs. And a friend of mine, very well recognized Polish journalist, Dariusz Rosiak, the public radio said thank you to him, and his contract with the radio expired, and they said, okay, we will not work with you again. And he raises 15,000 euro a month for his special podcasts about the situation in the world. So it's 60,000 zloty. So it shows that there is a potential in people wanting to have some new business models of media. And the second is subscriptions, and all the Polish press is now trying to find the way to collect money from the readers, because in the beginning of internet, if in Poland everybody thought that news are for free, and there are a lot of people who said, okay, there's no way to pay for information. But it's our job to ask people, to teach people that if you would like to if you would like to be provided with reliable information, you have to pay. And I think that maybe we are in the very beginning of this path, but I think I see something optimistic in that. Sorry for interrupting.
It's great to know, really. But yes, but my last question, as I mentioned before, is could, for example, the European Union or the European institutions to protect free, liberal, or professional journalism in our countries? Marton or Michal?
Yes, you know, I'm not a policymaker, and the Hungarian government often says that we are ones, and this is why I don't really like to answer questions what the European Union should or shouldn't do. But if I want to give you an answer, I would say that if the European institutions could somehow force the international tech giants to give back more to those who are actually producing the content, it could help. So I wouldn't need a European Union interfering in Hungary to somehow produce independent news. I am less enthusiastic about it made by the American government right now, by Radio Free Europe. I know this is a debate. I think that if the biggest debate in a country is whether international forces are somehow influencing Hungary or not, we should make media without the financing of international institutions, if possible. So I say that if the European institutions help us to get back some part of our money, which I think was made because of our success, but it went straight to the accounts of Facebook and Google and others. So if we could get back some part of that money, it would make our jobs easier and our coverage would have more quality.
Good point.
I would actually add that instead of setting up media or financing media, and I would just repeat what I've said, European institutions can help the most if they enforce their own rules and make sure that local politicians and local governments keep these rules. Because if they do, then part of the rules is to have a pluralistic media environment. Part of the rules is to eliminate corruption. And what happens is that so often, if you remember, we kept writing about Robert Fico's government corrupt practices, yes, like for ages. And sometimes we made the minister to step down, but sometimes not. And if I imagine that in Hungary, that journalists are writing and revealing corruption over the past 5 to 10 years, and there is no practical result, that they are not leaving, then it's frustrating. And I think that not financing media, but like keeping their own rules. And
ensuring that the legal framework is working. Yeah, it would help. Yes.
Yeah, because these are two let's say, two dimensions. Yes, first dimension is that law should be and right to free speech should be ensured everywhere and enforced in every EU countries. And the second point, I think that Martin is really right saying about this money. A few days ago, a British Competition and Markets Authority made a report showing that in 2019 the media sector and on advertisement, 15 billion pounds, and 80% of this money went to the US US enterprises from the USA, the tech giants. So I think that it is really a challenge, yes, to show that they earn this money also because of our work, yes, because of our work to produce content, produce news, to provide analysis, to provide insights in what's happening in the politics, and internet and media are still about advertisement, and because of the huge current of money goes to those bigger players. It's impossible to Poland, for example, to impose any digital tax. It's impossible for Hungary to impose the digital tax, but it's EU, which is the partner for these Silicon Valley enterprises, to produce such a legislation which will make this competition fair.
Yes, so I think it's something very optimistic, because I'm sure that the European Union is trying to find some ways how to bring some money back to the European Union and also to the media as well. So, dear guests, I think time is gone. So, thank you very much, because it was really very good discussion about situation in Visegrad 4, and I'm really glad to listen to your opinions, because it was really very, very like informed. Yes, informed, and also it was good to know that there are people who know and who live for not only for values as democracy and freedom, but also who remember what does it mean journalism in a poor or elementary definition. Because we are not political leaders. We can be opinion leaders, but at the beginning we have to be journalists. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope I will see you and I will listen you a lot of time, because this discussion was really, really very, very nice. So thank you, Pavla Holcová from Czech Center Investigace.cz. I would like to thank Beata Balogová from Slovak Daily SME, also Marton Gergely from Hungarian HVG, and Michal Szulżyński from Polish Rzeczpospolita.
Thank you for having me.